Another foreign trip as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu departs Abuja today for Chad, where he will be visiting for the inauguration of the president there. 47 ministers as well have been told to deliver their scorecards. That's how we start the program this morning. I am Adewale Olashukwan. You're welcome to Headline Reviews.
And I am Godwin Sundays. Another good day to say welcome to Headline Reviews. Of course, this is where we get to talk about all the select national dailies and help you make sense with the newspapers that we discuss on this table. Once again, we welcome. But they were looking at the president traveling at this time, visiting President Muhammad and Debbie's in Chad. I think for once we've seen President Bola Ahmed Tinubu uniting the ECOWAS front and ensuring that within the ECOWAS space, especially the warring nations in the ECOWAS, are trying to work modalities to ensure that we have peace across. This is a good development for Nigeria and for African democracy, if you ask me, especially within the western region of Africa. Exactly.
Very good development for democracy in Africa. And we can understand that the relationship between Nigeria and Chad go a very long way since our independence, both independence in the 1960s. And we've seen what we've done together. The fight against the insurgency in the northern part of Nigeria has also been fought, where the past president, his son, right now is the president, lost his life during the fight with Boko Haram in the northern parts of the country. We also share the Lake Chad, which is very important source of water for also people in the Lake Chad region in both countries. But it's also important, just like you said, that Chad is a very important country when it comes to the West African region, in sub-region in Africa, and looking at the issue of terrorism, looking at the issue of corruption, looking at the issue of good neighborliness. And I'm sure President Tinubu has a long list of discussion that is going to continue to further with the president who has been inaugurated for a second term.
Most definitely. I just hope and that something comes out positive from this meeting. And also, but then speaking about the meeting, I should think at this point in time that President, since it's just neighboring country, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should just go by himself and leaving behind the senior governmental officials. So, we have been briefed yesterday by Galali that the president will be traveling alongside with other senior governmental officials. I hope they're not 37.
Exactly. We cannot expect the president to go alone. But of course, when it comes to the issue of cutting down cost of governance, we can understand that the president himself has done quite a bit to ensure that his list of entourage will always reduce whenever he proceeds on foreign journey. But this is not even a strategic deal for communication. It's just for them to celebrate the essence of democratic process that has been allowed to have its course in Chad. We've seen people, even neighboring countries such as Nigeria and some other Burkina Faso, where we've had military governments having rule there right now. So whatever little bit of democracy we get, we should have the time to celebrate and rejoice with ourselves as brothers of the same community. But there are a lot of things to talk about today.
Most definitely.
We will go on a quick break, and when we come back, we go through the headlines that we've selected for you today.
Welcome back. And right now we're starting up with the newspaper, where we have that Abba Kyari gets bail after 27 months in, I beg your pardon, the Sun newspaper, where Abba Kyari gets bail after 27 months in detention. Well, the Sun newspaper has it that a federal high court sitting in Abuja has granted DCP Abba Kyari, former commander of the Force Intelligence Response Team, 2 weeks bail after 27 months in detention. The bail will allow Abba Kyari to complete the burial rites for his mother, Yachila Kyari, who passed away on May 5th, 2024. Kyari has been in detention since his arrest on February 14, 2022 on drug-related charges filed by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA. His bail application will be determined on Friday, and also other things will follow. But Yachila Kyari, who died in the early hours of May 5th, was buried the same day according to Islamic rites, despite Kyari's inability to attend the burial. Large crowds in Borno State gathered to pay their respects. Yachila is survived by 10 children, with Abba Kyari being the eldest son. Wale right now, let's get a context. Let's put this whole conversation in context for viewers out there. Now, Abba Kyari has been is a former DCP of police, and we call him the super cop in police because of his passion and dedication to the job, especially when it has to do with fighting of crime and arresting criminals in the country. But story has it that he was allegedly framed up, or it was allegedly copped into an alleged crime scene with the likes of a lot of kingpin in the crime scene, and he was arrested and he has been in detention. He has tried to get his release over the months, but all prove abortive. But just sometime this month, early this month, the mother died. He tried to go and to get a bail for him to go and even pay his last respects to the mom, and it was not granted. But thank God, yeah, the bail has been granted finally. But looking at all of this Abba Kyari's issues right now, I think that the federal government should, at this point, begin to look into this issue. If it means them reopening the Abba Kyari's case, let's go into fact findings issues to talk about some of the conflict resolution analysis, which you call the onion layer of complete analysis. Let's look at it from an in-depth perspective. If Abba Kyari had committed the crime as alleged by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, and we've not seen the court come out to say that Abba Kyari has been sentenced to so and so months. We think this is the right step in the right direction for the government to take at this point in time. Since Abba Kyari's case is coming up again, we should start talking about how many months is it going to be in detention? How many months is it going to serve? What are the evidence available for all? Are we going to go through that route where we say that you arrest people and detain them, then we now start investigating what actually led to that crime? This is not a welcome development, even going with the fact that Abba Kyari is a senior police officer. We should hasten up with that investigation and let us know some of those outcome of the information so that we can be able to know that there is hope for the common man, even our judicial system.
Exactly, and I think you've touched a lot of important areas in the issue of Abba Kyari, and so many people might be wondering, Abba Kyari again, and it's been 27 months or so, and a lot of people are beginning to forget about the story, and that says something about our justice system in the country, which has to be hastened up, just like you said. We can't have all this long months or even years, I should put it, that we delay in ensuring that justice has been served. But looking at the super cop that we mentioned about, he was touted as one of the most brilliant, a super cop as it was famously known at that time, going after criminals and ensuring that they are being brought to justice according to our laws that we have in the country. But he was also caught during in the act where he was in a car negotiating with somebody who has transported, or should I say, trafficked drugs into the country, and that was the reason he was apprehended, that he was put into detention. He has pleaded the way he wants to plead in the court, and the case is still in court for adjudication. But now we see that he has been granted a bail. Some people might disagree that why should he be granted bail to go and visit his mother? A lot of is it because of his position as somebody very high up there in power? Do you allow everybody whose mother has died, do you allow them to go out and bury their mother and complete their rights? So that's another quarter of the conversation. But looking back at the issue, was at this table that we discussed the issue of death sentence to the issue as the National Assembly has been drafts the law itself making into a bill in the National Assembly that death sentence should be given meted onto people that are caught doping or even with the issue of drug trafficking in Nigeria itself, there's been a law really in place right now to ensure that death sentence would be the capital punishment would be meted on them. But looking at it in all aspects of it, the issue of when this started, how long it has taken, when it is going to be resolved, has to be put in place. If you look at the issue of the elections in Nigeria, understand that there's some governors that would spend 3 years in governance before we understand that this is they were not even the winners of the election, and that there were modalities that were put into place to ensure that within 6 or 3 months after the election, you must be able to adjudicate and ensure that this is what the court has decided to do. And I think this should be put into place. We don't know whether we're going to find it, because there's still the presumption of innocence in court. So we're waiting forward to see whether he will be jailed for what is done, how long he will be jailed. Of course, the jail sentence will begin from when he has been put in detention. But we need to move on to
Well,
another story.
Let them give him a chance to bury his mother.
Yeah, well, he will get his 2 weeks chance, just
Yeah,
like
2
the
weeks,
judge
yeah,
has
2
made 2 week chance to bury his mother before he's taken back, remanded into the prison. So now we move on to our next story from the Tribune newspaper. The federal government and the increases minimum wage offer to 57,000 naira. The new minimum wage negotiation between the organized labor and organized private sector and the federal government took an interesting turn late midnight as the duo of the federal government and the OPS made a new offer of 57,000 naira as the new minimum wage, while the organized labor reduced its initial figure from 500,000 naira to 497,000 naira. The argument of the government, the federal government, is that they're not paying for living wage. What we are paying for is for the minimum wage in the country. And we must understand the position of the labor as well as one of the people that are saddled with responsibility of ensuring that the rights of laborers in Nigeria, right of workers, we should say, Nigeria, are protected. And when you work, you get paid for what you work. You cannot be denied your salary, or you be paid a meager salary compared to what the economic situation is right now. That's the position of the organized labor in the country. But the federal government has also come out to say, we negotiate, we renegotiate, we look for ways that we can push forward with our own proposition, and we look for ways that you can cut down in your own demand. But one of the arguments of the federal government is that we can afford this 57,000 naira. You're looking for what is even more than that. But when we look at the bulk of the employment system in Nigeria, we look at the most employers in Nigeria, not from the federal government. Most of them are in their state level or even in the private sector. So can we begin to look at the state governors as well? Because most of the state governors have been found wanting when it comes to these conversation of the issue of minimum wage. Most of them are not even present in the conversation. And when we see the last time we had the minimum wage increased to 30,000, we still had some governors that were paying 25,000 or 27,000 or 7,000. Some are still even paying 7,000 as we reported some weeks ago on this table. So if we look at that for state governors, how about the private sector in the country? You cannot push them to the extent to which they cannot be able to pay for the wages of their workers, let alone be able to continue to work in the country. Of course, we've seen that modalities have been put in place to ensure that some taxes are being cut. If you're earning between 25 to 30 million naira, 15 to 25 million naira per annum in Nigeria, you're not supposed to be paying personal income tax or business tax in the country. So all of this have been put in place. But I want to see a situation where the government is not cutting cost on one hand and taking it from another hand. You cannot be increasing it. Let's say even increase it to 70,000 or 70-something thousand as the labor is claiming to want again. How then do you talk about the issue of reduction in prices of goods and commodities, or I should say, in the country? So you cannot be giving with one hand and then you're taking everything with another hand. And I think those are things that we need to be able to juxtapose. And I think the proposition of the labor part, the organized labor, I beg your pardon, should include that in their demand.
Well, Wale, you've said it all from your own perspective. All I can say on this issue is hope the federal government and organized labor are not using us to play pangolo. You know the word pangolo, the way
exactly.
It comes, you're joking with Nigerians and you're playing with Nigerians' intelligence. Because each time the organized labor increase their demand, the federal government moves a bit and increase their own side of the bargain. So each time the organized labor move from 250,000 to 500,000, so the Nigerian federal government moves to 10%, almost 10% plus of that amount, or 11% as the case may be. So I'm just asking, hope this is not another dede.
Well, that's a good question to ask, because it's really important that we must ensure that this administration gets it right, even before May 29, as we see it fast approaching.
May 29 is next week. All right, well, let's move on to the last paper for today. We're going straight to the Punch, where in commemoration of his first anniversary in office, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has directed his ministers to present their performance reports to Nigerians. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, while announcing this at a press briefing in Abuja on Wednesday, said the low-key first anniversary celebration would be marked with sectorial media briefings by the 47 federal ministers starting on Thursday, which is today. Idris was joined at Wednesday's media press briefing by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, and the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Abubakar Bagudu. As at yesterday, the minister has already come out to say that in the person of Idris, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, has come out to say that the 47 ministers across the country will begin to give across board in President Bola Ahmed administration will begin to give a scorecard and score sheet for Nigerians to be able to measure their performance and be able to accredit them if they've been able to carry out their mandatory functions as enshrined in the various acts that brought them into office. Again, he has come out to say that you're free to scrutinize the various organs and tiers of government. Now, this is fair if you ask me, because it gives us an opportunity at this point to be able to evaluate the entire ministerial framework of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But then what the president has not told us is what happens after the appraisal, after the scorecard, are Nigerians permitted to vote and also give their inputs by way of vote and contributions to the general overview of what has been said about each serving minister. Then if Nigerians are allowed to give their inputs after the scorecard, after coming out to brief Nigeria what they've been able to do for the last 1 year, can Nigerians take a step further outside the voting? Can Nigerians also vote them out and being implemented by the government? Can we put a structure in place where we can have an input framework, like a bar chart or a pie chart analysis framework? Also, okay, you've done A and B, there's a space bar for us to give our input, then the space bar for us to, all of these mathematical indices need to be considered for us to know where we're heading to. Because if we don't do this, it becomes a recurring phenomenon and a common decimal factor in the Nigerian political history, where we begin to see Goodluck Ebele Jonathan's administration. We had presidential briefing where Goodluck Jonathan was able to, his ministers were able to, then it was led by Labaran Maku. They were able to come out to tell us what they've been able to do for the government. But there again, there was no clause for us to sanction those ministers and for the president to follow suit on those recommendations and implement those decisions by the people. Now, that was left undone. The same thing we saw with President Buhari's administration. The same ministerial accounts, but no implementation. Let the president at this point, since he has come out to tell us that, hey, the scorecard and the score sheet will be available for you to be able to see performance and measure performance of the government. No problem. But to get this right, let Idris Muhammad and also Bagudu and Ngume, let them look at the frameworks that have been put in place, and let's get this once and for all. Every minister that is serving in the government must be held accountable, just like what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done to Betta Edu, as ensure that she accounts for everything that went on in her ministry while she was at the helm of affairs. Now, we should also look at this. If Minister of Aviation, Minister of Labor and Productivity, Minister of all other ministers of Agriculture and Environment and all what have you, if they can now begin to come out, so far so good, 2 billion contract has been awarded. Who were they awarded to? Can we do a breakdown? What are the documentational frameworks that were used in place? Now, this will now chant a new course for our ministerial and if you like to use the word ministerial dictums as the word as it may imply in this case. But while I beg to submit that the president should look in a different direction.
Exactly, and if we look back in history at the not so distant history during the campaign trail of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, one of the selling points of the people touted him as a people's manager, somebody who is hands-on and who will always be accountable to whatever it is that we are looking, whatever it is that his administration is responsible for doing. That is what we're looking forward to right now with the scorecards that are going to be made public to the citizens and to ensure to understand and to criticize what the ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I beg your pardon, ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria have done for the past 1 year. So we don't want to look at that alone, just like you said. We want to be able to look at mechanisms where those that have been found wanting in their responsibilities, educating their responsibility in such manner that is not up to the standard that would uplift the people's living standard, are also taking off, and other people are willing to take their place. President Bola Tinubu said while he was giving the names of his ministers to the National Assembly that he's not apportioning any portfolio to any of the ministers, because he can move them from one ministry to another ministry, and he can also fire them as and when due. And we realize that some of them have done well, some of them are found wanting, some of them still have questions to answer. We look forward to how that will materialize.
We look forward,
exactly. We look forward to that.
Well, if we look at the time, our time is already fast spent, and our producer is already signaling us to
wrap up. Wrap up the show. It's been a wonderful conversation so far. We look forward to May 29 as we cover it here right in the studio. One year of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration.
1 year.
1 year
of eventful administration.
And that's how we call it a close or a wrap today on Headline Reviews on Afro Connect TV. I am Adewale Olashukbo.